Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit North Node, square opposition, or inconjunct one's natal Venus. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve the North Node, they can be about one's future, destiny, mission, purpose, what you're learning and aspiring to be, and where you're directed toward. Now, when transit North Node is basically making an adverse aspect to natal Venus. So now I'm going to elaborate on that. When I say basically adverse aspect, of course, squares and oppositions, those aspects in astrology are adverse and negative. Now, when you're talking about an inconjunct aspect can often be about, it's neutral. So neutral aspects can have good and bad qualities in them, coupled with the fact that an inconjunct aspect can often require an adjustment or transition, and that, of course, can cause some exasperation and tension. Now, so collectively, basically, I do see this as an adverse transit. So going back to this now, when transit North Node basically is making an adverse aspect to one's natal Venus, well, it may manifest in one's future, destiny, mission, purpose, what you're learning and aspiring to be, where you're directed toward. This may conflict with your love life at this time. If you're involved romantically with someone, you may be doing something in connection with the North Node that may be challenging this, or vice versa. It might be hard for you to find that equilibrium and balance in your love life and your relationships with where you feel you're directed to, what you're learning to be at this time. And the thing is, if this is if you got the transit North Node, say if it's in Aquarius, it might be learning to be more unobtrusive and conspicuous, being considerate, blending in with the group, doing things that are more group related, team related. It can be a thing to when you have this transit as well. Remember that the North Node is also connected. It's what we're learning and aspiring to be. Venus is about our enjoyment, and the thing is, it can be where your own enjoyment may conflict with where you feel you're directed to. Say if it's like a career situation, it might be the business pleasure syndrome. You might be torn between what you need to do in terms of your professional life versus your enjoyment. Say especially if the transit North Node is in Capricorn and or the 10th house, that would be a good example where the career, it might be some career related issue that may be it might be taking precedence over your enjoyment, your fun at this time, or it might be vice versa. It might be that the things that you enjoy, that you're fun at this time, these things may challenge where you're being directed toward, where your future lies at this time. And Venus is also connected with our values as well. And is it a harder time maybe to value one's future? At this time it may be, but you always need to be valuing what lies ahead for you at this time. And it can be, the North Node can be our destiny, where we're preordained, the thing that is where you may be just destined to be at or to do at this point in time. And you have to, it may be harder to value that at this time if you're stuck and you're in complacency and you're in a comfortable situation. It may be harder for you to be moving forward at this time. And many of us anyway get stuck in that. The South Node is our comfort zone, especially if you're very complacent and comfortable as far as your South Node position goes. It can make it very hard to be moving forward this time. It can be a time too. Venus is about our self-worth, our self-esteem, and how we feel about ourselves. So it can be a time where where our future, if you're working on issues with your self-worth, your self-esteem. Maybe this conflicts with where you want to go, where you feel your destiny might be. Maybe you don't feel your worth, whatever is associated with this North Node transit. And it can be situation of it can be when you have, if there's any self-worth or self-esteem issues at this time, that can be about a lack of confidence. And it's important to just remember at this time that if you may need to deal with feelings of unworthiness, of lack of self-worth at this time, in order for you to actually move forward and go where you're directed, where you feel you're really directed to at this time. It may be difficult because, again, we're talking about a basically collectively adverse transit. Now, Venus is also connected with possessions and resources. So it might be where, if you're going wherever it is in connection with your North Node, it's this transit of the North Node, maybe it's taking you away from your possessions for some time. Maybe you don't really want to, maybe something happens where you've got to leave your possessions behind. Say if the transit North Node is in Sagittarius and or the 9th house, it can be where you might be taking some long distance journey, and maybe you're in a situation where you can't take all the possessions with you. You probably heard that expression, you can't take it with you when you go, but it might be a situation where you might have to leave some things behind as far as your possessions go. And again, the Venus is also associated with your resources as well. And the thing is, the North Node placement may be taking you into a play. You might be directed toward a situation, or maybe you don't have maybe the resources you had previously, but it doesn't mean that you won't have something different as far as resources go during this transit. But it may be taking you away from where your resources were previously. And it can also be, Venus is also associated with peace and tranquility. And it might be where, if you're doing whatever it is with your North Node placement, it might be disrupting your peace that you might have in your life. And say you have say a good example could be if transit North Node is in Scorpio and or the 8th house, and you have your natal Venus opposing it in Taurus and or the 2nd house. It can be where some crisis or upheavals may be taking place, and it might be opposing your peace and your tranquility at the time of this transit. Venus is also connected with art. And if you're somebody that is an artist, or is enamored with art, whether it's in a profession or as a hobby, this could be something where this North Node may be taking you away from that for some time. It can be during, however long the transit would actually last. It might be where you might have to do things associated with the North Node that may conflict with doing things of an artistic nature, whether it could be drawing, painting, sculpting, as some examples. Now, anatomically, Venus is connected with the throat, the neck, the thyroid, kidneys, and lower back. So if you are having any issues with any of these things that are anatomically connected with Venus, it might feel like it's derailing your future at this time, and it may make it harder for you to move forward, whether you're just simply trying to transition out of a home, or it's a business or some career, or even in some cases maybe even a love connection. It might be harder for you to move on if you're dealing with anything, especially if it's some chronic issue, and if it's very debilitating. It can be something. Venus is also about negotiations. So if you're in some situation where you're trying, you might be having difficulty maybe in terms of trying to negotiate something, because you're trying to move forward and you're trying to do, as far as you may be learning and aspiring to be something, or you might feel, you're wherever you're learning to be, and in developing qualities that are connected with the North Node, attributes and qualities at this time connect with it. It may be causing some difficulty if you're involved in some negotiation, you're trying to reconcile some matter or find a compromise with somebody. Venus is also associated with legal matters and lawsuits. So this could also be a time where, if you have some issues that need to be addressed or confronted, which is connected with the North Node, that might challenge you if you're embroiled in some legal matter. If there's a lawsuit, whether you filed it or there was one filed against you, or just some legal situation you may be dealing with in general, this is where the transit can be rough. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now another way this transit may manifest, it could be that qualities that may need to be developed might conflict with your relationships at this time. Say, for example, if the transit north node is in Virgo, in the fifth house, it could be maybe you're trying to do things like being more analytical, or being able to be more detail oriented in matters of the heart, or it could be about extrapolating and analyzing, which is Virgo. It'd be sports, which is the fifth house, sports data, if it's something you're trying to do. It might be, and it might conflict with a love relationship or even your significant friendships. Also, too, issues that may need to be confronted and addressed may challenge your matters of fun and enjoyment at this time. Let's say if the transit north node is in Leo in the fourth house, as an example, maybe you're dealing with a domineering or arrogant or bombastic, which is Leo, a family member. Could be someone you're simply close to home with. It could be the less dominant parent, which is often the mother. Now, also too, where your future lies, which is the north node, may conflict with what your terms of it could be. Doing something with money, or what you value. Say if if the north node, the transit north node is in Scorpio in the 11th house, as an example, it could be doing something deep, just Scorpio, with astrology, which is the 8th house. Now, also too, it might be harder to learn and aspire to be something due to issues. It could be, if you have any issues anatomically connected with Venus, such as, again, as the throat, the neck, the lower back, kidneys, or the thyroid. It can be issues where you have a conflict with that. It might be harder to learn and aspire to be something if you're having any of those issues that I described connected with Venus. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.